Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Former Michigan wide receiver Braylon Edwards is in the news these days for attacking his former rival. Edwards said, and I quote, "That program is falling apart and recruits can see it." Who is he referring to? Who else? Ohio State. That's a very, very bold and brash statement to make about Ohio State, considering the success they've had over the years. Yes, they lost to Michigan the last 2 years, but that doesn't mean the program is falling apart. Edwards' comments stem from five-star recruit Jaden Davis spurning the Buckeyes for the Wolverines. And he's basing his comments on the fact that Michigan hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver in years. So why would a top quarterback recruit like Davis go to Michigan when he can just go to Ohio State and become another NFL prospect along the lines of Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud? Valid point. He says because the recruit took that position against Ohio State, then it must be a problem. He even went on to attack Ryan Day. He said that if Ryan Day loses this upcoming game against Michigan this year, then he's probably going to get fired. I find that hard to believe, but it does bring us to mind who we're talking about here. We're talking about Ohio State, Michigan. These people up there make that rivalry out of way more than it needs to be. What they need to do, yeah, you beat me this year, Jim, but I'll be back next year. And if Jim gets whipped next year, they need to just shake hands, part ways, and I'll see you again next year. Why? Because both programs are flourishing. Yes, you want to beat your rival, but it's not the end of the world when you lose to your rival. Look what happened to Ohio State. After losing to Michigan, they landed themselves in the playoffs thanks from a gift from future conference opponent USC. When they lost, it allowed them to get into the playoffs. And lo and behold, they controlled the game against the eventual champion Georgia Bulldogs, and it was just a field goal away from winning the whole thing because they probably would have trounced through TCU as well. So for him to say that Ohio State is falling apart, that's a little far-fetched. Now, last time I talked to you about the NIL, and I was going to find out how the women were doing in relation to the men. Well, as expected, the women, they don't do quite as well as the men, but there are a lot of women out there that's doing pretty well. Right now, the top NIL woman is Livy Dunn from LSU. She's currently around $3.5 million, but she's not the only LSU player. Controversial darling Angel Reese, she's doing pretty well, and so is her teammate Flo Janae, I think it's Johnson, I'm not sure about that, but she's also doing well, and she also raps on the side. There are several other players doing well with modeling and other different opportunities that they have with other companies. So things are looking pretty well for the women on the NIL side. But you got to understand there's still going to be some jealousy and resentment in those locker rooms, because while some of these players might be making $1 million, you got some players on the team who aren't making anything. But expect LSU to get a little fatter after winning the championship. And like I say, I'd like to see the NIL get spread around more to women, but you can't tell somebody who they want to invest their money in. So keep an eye on that as you see. And of course, LeBron James' son right now is at the top, and he hasn't even made it out of high school yet. So NIL has the potential to be big, but how big should it get? Should there be a cap on it? Should there be any limits? Should the sports teams at colleges separate from the mainstream university? What's fair? Only the future knows. Sports for Real.